Willkommen beim Wandaful Podcast, Living Yoga off the Mat. Ich bin Wanda Badwal. Ich freue mich, gemeinsam mit dir die faszinierende Welt des Yoga, der Spiritualität und persönlichen Weiterentwicklung zu erforschen. Zu hören und zu erfahren, wie wir mehr Liebe, Balance und Erfüllung in unserem täglichen Leben integrieren können. Willkommen bei Wandaful. Schön, dass du hier bist. Hey guys, and welcome to this week's podcast. As you notice, I'm speaking English because this week I have an international yoga teacher, an artist, an amazingly inspiring woman on the show, and I'm speaking about Meghan Currie. Yes. Perhaps you have seen her already, some of her amazing videos. Maybe you've practiced with her. Maybe you follow her on Instagram. She's just a bomb. Yeah, that's all you can say. She's a bomb. She's, for me, totally inspiring, embodying that feminine, Shakti, creative, expressive being. To me, she's a total inspiration. And I had the honor to sit down with her and get real and talk about challenging lifetimes and how yoga and self-expression helped her as a way of self-healing, of transformation. And what I really admire and appreciate about Meghan most is that she's really willing to show herself to be vulnerable and human and just be real. And yeah, I felt really, really connected to Meghan throughout that interview and after that interview. And I think I really gained a friend. And now I'm so happy to share with you this interview with Meghan Currie. Enjoy. Okay, thank you so much for taking the time, Meghan. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So we start right into the first question. So I always like to cover up this whole interview with the opening and the closing question. So my first question is, what moves you in your life right now?
What moves me? What moves me in my life right now? I think it's the humbling realization that the practice or the getting to know of the layers of myself and how I unconsciously interact with my environment and other human beings, that growing process, that it really, really, really never stops. And so that's really humbling. And also at the same time, within that humility, it's inspiring because I think that in the past, I didn't realize I was such a perfectionist, but I was definitely to different degrees of a perfectionist, and many, many, many years ago, it manifested as being very controlling. And so over the years, I've shed layers of that, and but there's always more layers. and I think in the past that realization might have been destabilizing, but now in a way it's liberating, because I'm like, oh yeah, okay. It allows me to be just more human, and I'm happier being more human and embracing more of who I am and of my fault lines and of the things I'm working on, and being more open about them as well. And so I think that moves me. That moves me because I think that realization gives me more space inside. Somehow it creates a more spacious environment to just be who I am.
Thank you. So I just had the opportunity to take a class with you, and we were breathing a lot, and it felt so good. And you just said that you did a 30-day training and intensive breathing. So my idea was, and that came into my mind, I was doing in your class, actually, was thinking about this interview. if you would be open to guide a little breathing awareness for our listeners to just like drop into this interview and to come into the space with us right now.
Okay.
Yeah, just very simple.
Yeah. Okay. I would say that, first of all, it's what I kind of talked about in the class, is that the simplicity of it also can relieve any pressure around thinking it should be a certain way. So the first thing would be to just remember that all things can be really simple. And the simplicity is a gateway into something that's more vast and complex, but the complexity of it drops away somehow when it's allowed to be simple, if that makes sense. So close your eyes. And then right away with the closing of the eyes, let the breath be the vehicle that literally carries your awareness inside. And then just feel the touch of the breath on the inside. So just like when somebody grazes your skin with a fingertip or with a feather, and how a graze of a fingertip or a feather can be just like so intense and so profound, to begin to tune into the most subtle inner experiencing of breath that you can find in this moment. And then just to sit with that and just allow almost like this tickling or like a inner combing of breath. Now, there can be little areas of tension that kind of grip, and it's like if there's a stick in a river or like a beaver dam that blocks the flow of water. It doesn't block it. It actually causes the flow of water to like circulate in another pattern. But sometimes when we have these internal sticky places, our mind wants to step in and like fix it. And so explore what it's like not to fix anything, but just to allow slowly your awareness to lean into whatever you're feeling without an agenda. Play around with this idea, or even imagining that gravity is anchoring the breath down deeper into your torso. So deep that maybe you could feel the breath of the pelvic floor. So there's a gentle expansion and contraction and rise and fall of the pelvic floor. And then a super sweet and light and nourishing and simple massage everywhere with breath. And then all through and all around this breath that's continuously circulating and spiraling, and each time it comes in and it comes out, it takes a slightly different path, or sometimes a obviously different path. And through all of that, there's all of these aspects of you that are like folding into it and through it and being whirled around by it. And these are the aspects of being a human being. And so just to allow everything to be as it is and to anchor and be anchored by the breath in what is. And then to continue with that breath, or you can let it go and keep your eyes closed or open them, whatever you feel like doing.
Thank you so much, Meghan.
Yeah.
Your words are really like poetry, I think. Like really feel like a sweet embrace. Thank you so much. So I hope everything arrived with us like I did. When I was, Googling you.
Oh, Google.
Google, our friend Google. And I found so many beautiful videos of you and you drawing paint on your body, drawing paint on the wall, singing, making music with your body. So you're a total expression for me of just, life, creativity moving through you. And I think that's why people just love you and admire you for that. And I think, like what I would love to know is how do you do that you just get out of the way, because we Westerners are so in our minds. We really need to know, how can we be more channel of intuition and let, life, Shakti energy move through us? Like, how do you do that?
I think that it's important to recognize that in my process is one of actually not getting out of my way, and that's part of the process that I express. So it may appear like I'm just this, wild and free, expressive woman with no nothing inside that's holding me back, or I'm able to channel these things so freely or whatever. And then that might create an ideal in someone's mind. And I think that what needs to be realized is that process that you're seeing is my process. That's the way I liberate myself. So it could appear, if you see me painting or dancing or something, that I'm just like a free, open channel. But often what is happening is I'm expressing something that I'm processing. So, and those things that I'm processing, they're not always like easy for me to process, let's say. So I have found this, and I feel so happy I've found and have these ways of expressing myself, because it is a way for me to process some of the things that I find really difficult in, and to integrate whatever it is I'm processing in a healthy way, because in my 20s, I had a whole lot of unhealthy ways.
So what were these unhealthy ways you expressed in?
Well, it was, alcohol and drugs and running. But it's funny because I would use those things to actually run deeper into my creativity. I remember I would also use them to just be wild and like do stupid things, but that hurt me and were destructive. But I also use them as a way to set myself free. Like that was my way of being like, okay, now since I'm like super high, I can write all these things. I can like go into this channel, and liberate myself to kind of like, it might go through go explore my own mental, physical, emotional, capacity and my connection to this universe. And, but what I quickly realized, although it took me many years to get out of this kind of difficult wash cycle with these drugs and alcohol, but it was obvious pretty quickly that any kind of, for me anyway, I won't speak for other people, but that creativity or things we access when under a certain kind of influence isn't integrated. So it's not sustainable, and it can end up being quite destructive, obviously. So, I realized at some point I wanted to be able to access these aspects of myself without anything, without having to use something to get me somewhere or to take me out of some pain. So slowly, it took me years, but, and I was painting the whole time anyway, but my whole process with it was much more, my whole process with it back then was me thinking what I should paint in order for the painting to be liked or something, And now it's not that. Now it's like, I'm just painting, and actually I don't like it. There's a part of every painting that I actually feel disgust and like nausea. Like it's such an awkward, gross feeling. But the point is that is the process. And I see that being the process in everything that we do, because we're living in this world of dynamic, interplaying contrasts. So within every process, then there's potential to experience every part of the opposing polarities within that process. Mm-hmm. So now that I think I have embraced much more of those polarities, rather than trying to justify or run from or create an inner environment of having an excuse to go so far out there. And now I express that in my creative outlets in, I would say, a more integrated way. But yeah, just to kind of like demystify or debunk, like just so people don't think I'm just this, I don't know, whatever might be idealized from seeing my paintings or what I do or how I move. It's like, it's come from a lot of inner pain and things that I've found really hard. So it's a processing of that.
Well, thank you for letting us witness your process. And what I really love about you, Meghan, like I don't know you that well, but what I've read about you and about how you see the world is that you integrate the light and the dark. And I think especially in this yoga world where we all speak all about light and love, is so important to also speak about the pain and the darkness, and that this two belong together. It's two sides of a coin. Like we can't have the true light without the dark and embracing it. So I think it's so inspiring to see you, using all these tools to express and to move through and to process. And you also spoke about, phases of depression. And I know the numbers in, I think, worldwide of depression are going like incredibly high right now. Like the world is going more sick, And so what I heard is that depression can be also like an internal, like a frozen kind of feeling, like aggression turns against yourself. So people listening now who are maybe depressed, who are sad, in pain, what would you suggest them to do? Like, because, they are like frozen and they don't know what to do with that pain. So how to start?
I guess I would offer some suggestions, but not necessarily to start with one or the other, because it depends on where we are, where we live, what we have access to. And, so it's going to be different for everybody. But one thing is to externalize it in the way that, seeking somebody you can share it with, like verbally share, because when it becomes, and this is in my experience again, but when it becomes internalized and then held inside, that has this ripple effect of creating more of that. And then the stories that can be created around whatever it is that kind of initiated the the initial thought, or the stories start to grow and deepen. I'm talking internally. So how I see it is like one thing that's going on, when internalized and held inside, turns into a million things going on. And then that can turn into a disease, or being out of balance, or energy in the body not moving in a harmonious way anymore. And that gives way to more thoughts. And then the thoughts feed, again, sensations and emotions. And then that feeds again more thoughts. And it just fractures deeper and deeper and deeper. And to add to that, there's a lot to be learned from being depressed. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to be learned from feeling sad. So along with that, to go into it, like where and why, and ask it questions, and journal. And especially if there's not great access to an environment of somebody or a community that you can talk to, because we don't all have that. And I say that because when I was growing up, I didn't feel like I could talk to anybody. So it was me inside of myself for 10 years, and really internalizing everything. So this is why I bring up how the internalization can create deeper fractures, because I can reflect now on the whole 10 years and see, wow, what happened? The groove got deeper and deeper, and the fractures got wider and wider, and still until it started to turn into things like paranoia and kind of obsessive compulsive behavior. And the paranoias were the most intense, because I was paranoid. I was paranoid about everything. So it's like a collection of fears, basically. Mm-hmm. But so it can well up to such a degree. So I had no idea back then how to actually go inside and sit with something. So had I known that was a possibility back then, wow, I think that would have been very helpful. So, and I know there's a lot of young people these days as well who are scared and are, having many of these. Depression or anxiety is kind of, in a way, it's spreading. And so externalize it with somebody who you can trust, find them. Seek somebody. Mm-hmm. And of course, I want to say a therapist. But then again, recognizing that not everybody has access to everything. Mm-hmm. So it's tricky for me just to say, a therapist, but then if a therapist is, somebody can't afford a therapist, like actually can't afford a therapist. But there's free help out there as well, but it can also be a friend. And because it's just a matter of saying, hey, I feel scared about this, with somebody that you trust, and they can be like, oh, okay. Either they'll validate it, like they feel scared too, or they'll just listen, or you just talk about your fear. Because so much of what where the depression can come from, and anxiety it's fear. It's this deep, kind of embedded or sprouted from the layers of the subconscious mind. And then it starts to spread up into the layers of the conscious mind, into fears that we can recognize. So okay, I'm afraid of this, and I'm afraid of this. And we put it into sentences. And all of those things, those are like the branches of a tree. But if you follow those branches down to the trunk, and if you follow the trunk down to the root, then there's probably going to be just one fear down there, like one thing that ultimately you're afraid of. So leaning into them, listening, asking questions, going inside, sitting with it, is a tool. Because if you and if we can learn to navigate the aspects of ourselves that we're scared of, then what is there to fear? Because then we can navigate the dark and the light, and we could see actually with more, perhaps, maybe it's a more clear vision that they're two, like you said, two sides of the same coin, and we can't have one without the other. So, there's something to be learned from everything. So if there's a phase in someone's life where they're running and using alcohol or whatever distraction, also I guess I caution to say anything negative about that. Like we are all on our own journey. And I've learned a lot from my addictions. I learned about addiction. Wow. And it was amazing to learn about addiction. And now I can actually understand people who are addicted and I can connect with them. But prior to that, I couldn't. I was like, oh, what? You do? You, I don't know. I was more judgmental because I didn't understand. So yeah, talking to somebody, leaning into it, and practices. And so I wouldn't just say, oh, yoga practice, because maybe it's not, maybe it's salsa dancing, whatever gets your heart going and some sweat pumping and, or not sweat. Maybe, maybe you don't need to sweat in order to come back into your body, but things that get you into your body. So you can feel your sensations, you feel your feet on the ground, because when we're in our bodies, we're on the earth, we're more grounded. Then just alone with that with that, just by being in our bodies with everything circulating from some kind of movement, automatically there's a connection to the earth. And with that connection to the earth, automatically there's an activation of the parasympathetic nervous system. So it brings us down and calms us down. Whether that's like shaking for 10 minutes, like fluttering your lips. And then it depends. I would say it depends on the level of anxiety or depression, but sometimes meditation, like sitting still, it just actually, it can, without a movement practice, cause the thoughts to amplify. And then there can be almost a fixation or like an accumulation or like a growth of more of whatever the story is to circulate. So that's why movement is so helpful to like get the energy expressed out of the body, and then sitting with things or breathing, doing breath work. After that can be helpful. So, but again, I wouldn't say there's just one order of things for everybody. And we're all so unique and so different. So along with all of these things that I'm saying, I think ultimately one of the most empowering things is to really inquire inside, like what self-inquiry. So what things make me feel grounded? What things make me feel safe? And making a list of those things. And so for me, for example, I spent like my whole teenage years out of my body. I was like I was in outer space. And so I do a lot of I do saunas and body scrubs, and I really like to take care of my skin, and it grounds me and it puts me in my body. And so along with all the other things that I do, this is another one of the things that I do. So I think to inquire into oneself more, what do I like? What makes me feel good? What foods, what liquids, what, do I actually feel nourished by, or loved in a way, loved by on the inside when I eat them? For me, I'm very sensitive to food. So, processed food, if I eat too much of it if I eat processed food consecutively for a couple of days, I do start to feel a blanket of sadness. I wouldn't call it a clinical depression, but I start to feel it coming. And I'll get very sad after eating processed food for a couple of days. So yeah, looking at all these different areas and yeah. And then letting it be a process, because again, I don't think it's a mistake. We learn so much. We could think of depression as an initiation into different layers of ourself. And I think this is one aspect of our upbringing that, in a way, we crave initiation. It's always been a thing in different traditions around the world to be initiated. You're initiated at a certain age. Not all traditions, but many. We know initiation as a thing, right? And there's all these different ways that humans have been initiated, and often it was with a plant medicine, but sometimes it's actually without any food or water, or going out into the forest for a week alone or whatever. We could look at our certain things that we experience that are scary as that. It's like going out, we're being initiated. You're being asked to go out into the forest without any food or water for a week. And to face yourself and to face your fears. And yeah.
I love this description of depression. It's amazing. It's an initiation. We have to, put other words, I think, for that. Yeah, I think it's so beautiful how you phrased it, to not judge it as good or bad, to just, it is, right? And to take all the learnings from that beautiful lessons we get.
I even think it's good to say, just because our minds are so much programmed in thinking it's bad. Mm-hmm. So even just to balance out that scale, we could even, how do we switch our perceptions and to have a little flick in our minds to say, what if it's a good thing? And I have an example to back this up. I can't remember how old I was. It was my early 20s. And I was going into a panic attack. But back then, I didn't even know what a panic attack was. But I remember that my body started to go numb. And I started to not know who I was or where I was anymore. That was my experience. I was starting to lose a sense of self. And one of my friends at the time was with me, or I called him. I can't remember either. I called him and I said, I'm really scared, or we were hanging out. That part's missing out of my memory. But we were at his house and I was kind of freaking out. I was like, oh my God, I was expressing to him what was happening and how scared I was. And while doing that, I was resisting everything that was happening. I was so scared that my fear of what was happening was amplifying also what was happening. And he looked at me and he he's a beautiful man. He looked at me and he was like, Meghan, you're lucky. I was like, what? He's like, you're lucky. This is an opportunity for you. You're being reworked from the inside out. He's like, I can't remember every single word that he said. He was talking about, that this was almost like a reworking or a recalibration and, downloading a new program or something like this. And he was pep talking me through this. And the switch of perception allowed me to be like, oh, I am. And I let go of the fear. So then it became enjoyable, actually, because it was kind of like being stoned, which back then I really liked. There was a loss of a sense of self. But because I wasn't resisting it, it wasn't scary. Mm-hmm. And it was actually like, wow, this is really neat. Like, what is happening here? And then it slowly went away. And it was actually a very cool experience. It reminds me of that one time I got stung by a scorpion and it sent me into a similar state, mm-hmm. A state of loss of the sense of self, mm-hmm. Or identifying with self. And so I think sometimes it's okay just to balance out the scales of our perception, to be like, hey, actually, I'm really confused right now. But what if confusion is like a part of life? And what if confusion serves to just show me that there's a part of me that's being reworked or transitioned or transformed or morphed? Like if you think about, I know it's this, of course, the butterfly, the caterpillar and the butterfly. Well, how confusing must that be? Like we would freak out if suddenly we turned to mush and then... So I think that switch of perception allows a surrender. And then if we can surrender to whatever the process will be, then it allows the process to be possibly even kind of enjoyable, because it's the opportunity to experience another aspect of being human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much, Meghan, for your openness and your vulnerability. It's amazing. It's very inspiring and touching. Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think if we all would put away this judgment of feelings and just be, this is a feeling, it's moving through me, we would go all much better through life and just go like, wow, there's this and there's that. And it's all part of life. Yeah. And it's very important, I think, for all of us to know, you know, what you were speaking about earlier, about what people might project on you as, you know, being this free spirit, just expressing happily, dancing through life, you know, that this comes from a place of actually processing, expressing also the darkness, the pain, you know, and I think this is really important for people to know that it's just not, you know, butterflies and everything is happy. And I think it's really, really important to know that. Yeah. So coming back to butterflies, you live in Bali. So we met in Bali actually a couple of times. I went to your classes. We have some common friends, and, you know, many, I think, beautiful, inspiring people, you know, collect in Bali and are drawn to Bali. And let us know a little bit about your journey to Bali. I think you were born in Canada originally. You've been to South America, lived there, did some projects there, and then to Bali. Or let us know a little bit about where you live, why you live in Bali.
I remember the moment I went to Bali, because I always thought I wasn't drawn to Bali because it was so touristy. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a place I really wanted to go. And then I had scheduled a teacher training there to lead one in 2015, I think. And I went and led the teacher training and loved Bali. And then I was traveling so much at that time, and I had 3 weeks off. And so I was trying to feel inside, where in the world do I want to go to just rest? And the only place in the whole wide world that my body wanted to go, it felt like it was my body. It was so interesting, the feeling, was Bali. So I went and I rented this house right on the ocean, and it was quite isolated. And I spent 3 weeks in this house right on the ocean. And anyway, then a year later, I again had been traveling and working a lot, and I had a really hard year, and I needed a break. So again, I looked in, asked my body, where in the world will I go to rest? And again, the only place in the whole wide world was Bali. My body, again, it was such an interesting feeling. So I went to Bali, and I kind of was sure at that moment that I had a teacher training to teach in a month or something, or 2 months. But then after that, I was like, okay, I'm taking a break for a while. And, but yeah, I guess when I got there, my taxi arrived in Ubud. I had rented this Airbnb. And when I stepped out of the car, the first person I met was Ilu, who's now, she's like my Balinese sister / mama. I've really gotten to know Ilu over the last 3 years. She's probably one of the few people that knows me the best, because I would see her every day. She was cleaning the house that I had rented, and that's how I first met her. But anyway, she's been in my life every single day almost, unless I go away. But and everything just flowed so easily. I guess I felt that at different times in my life. And that for me is always such a beautiful indication to go with the flow and to follow where it's flowing. So I did that, and everything so easily came together. And in Bali, I feel such a potency of, I don't even know what word to give it, but it's very potent for me. I live in Ubud, but outside of Ubud, I don't go into Ubud very often. But I feel connected to nature there, to creative energy. It's warm. I really like to be warm. The Balinese culture is like absolutely complex. When you first go there, you think, oh, it's just all like light, you know, and then staying there for a while, the layers in their culture, it's so multi-layered, and they within their culture embrace the dark, and I love that. So I love getting to know more and more the culture in a way that I haven't been able to get to know just by visiting there. And I feel like it would take me like 10 more years to even have a little bit deeper of an understanding of the culture, because it's so fascinating. It's so deep, their traditions and everything. So yeah, I think I stay there for many reasons. I do feel at home there. And that's a place I feel magic there. So I guess that's a word I can give it.
Yeah, it's definitely a magic place. What are other places you visited? Yeah, like let us know your 3 favorite places apart from Bali in the world.
Well, cities or?
Doesn't matter what you feel like.
Okay.
Your favorite places.
Well, I really like the Neptune Spa.
Where is that?
It's here. It's in Cologne. I have a hard time picking favorites. It's interesting why I have a hard time picking favorites. I think it's because when I arrive somewhere, I'm usually like really amazed to be there. And so I guess I don't have memories of thinking this is my favorite place, except for
Neptune Spa.
except for the sauna. Okay, I have 2 favorite cities. One is, and this is in no particular order, but Athens. There's something so powerful in Athens for me. The ruins are right in the city, and I love the buildings and the architecture. And oh man, I love Spain. I love Italy. Oh, I love Italy. Italy's dangerous for me though. Italy, yeah. And Lisbon. Oh, maybe Italy though. Okay, Italy.
You can take more than 3.
Okay.
I have a personal question for you as a yoga teacher. Do you ever feel tired and lazy and not wanting to practice?
All week.
Oh, that's relaxing for me to hear.
All week. I mean, oh yeah. I go through phases with practice, and I have I guess a different outlook on practice than what I used to have. And practice, I mean, practice means so many different things. But if we're talking about like my asana practice, for example, after flying from Bali to here, my body feels so tired. And I still do a practice, but maybe it's a lighter practice. And also, Yeah, I wouldn't say in the past I would have almost, you could call it dedication, you could call it discipline, or you could call it forcing and control. And then looking more, I guess to define all of those, it depends on the motive. So if my motive is stemming from me fearing being lazy, what does that create? Versus if my motive is stemming from wanting to balance my inner systems, then that creates a different effect, and if I'm following those different motives truthfully, then and if my intention is for example, for balance or to balance my inner systems, then that will produce potentially a different practice, physically, asana, if we're speaking asana based, then if my motive is to not be lazy, then I have an idealized idea of how I should practice, which would probably create more of a physical practice, like a hard practice, like a fiery practice. So yes, I have days where definitely, all week this week, I'm very tired physically. And I'm okay with it. And I've been doing nice, just gentle practices. And, so I know it can be a thing because depending on where you've studied or, what lineage or what tradition or what their values are, or what that message is, it can be something that can cause an inner battle and guilt and, I'm not doing it. But then I think ultimately it's good to go in and really look at that. Like if like I said in class today, if really there's as many meditations as there are humans, and ultimately we are wired differently because of your, I mean, we could go like past birth into pre that, but because of your experience in the womb and your upbringing, and each one of your experiences imprinted something. And so the way that everything moves in you is different than anybody else. So to say that we all have to do this same thing every day, I don't know. I have a different perspective on that. And I think also then it can become very mechanical and utilitarian. Is that the right way to say? And then that can create more disconnect from one's nature. And I think disconnect from one's nature has a purpose as well, because, then it helps us. It's like the slingshot that slingshots us back in the other direction. And then we go in the other direction. Then we go in the other direction. But I'm really interested in sharing and practicing trusting that it's right here, like I think that sometimes a practice or a tradition can also teach it's elsewhere, like like to trust in what they say, or and all that. And just also there's a lot of like controversy between traditions and between religions, and I think that's funny because in a way all of it is like it kind of like creates these polarities and a distraction away from what is right here. So I think that it's of great value for one to become their own, like, I guess warrior was the word that came, because it's like the power to discern moment to moment. And maybe some days you don't practice, and maybe you quote unquote should have, like it would have helped you, but it's for each of us to kind of zigzag along our path, and it's the path of discovery. And through every zigzag, we somehow find like a stronger calibration point to balance on the waters of life, because the life and the way it moves is not still.
Yes, thank you. So how do you do it on a day, just like on a very practical level? Like when you get up and you go like, wow, what does it feel like? Or how do I want to move today? Or I want to paint instead of doing a physical practice, or I want to do music. Like, how do you decide for yourself what's the way to practice?
When I'm at home, it's like I practice, and there's usually not a lot of inner negotiation that needs to happen because practice is something I like to do. It's fun. I love to move. So yeah, I would say it's different when I'm at home and I'm grounded and I've not been flying around different places. It usually goes that I wake up and I walk the dogs. That's the first thing. Then I come back and I like just make a coffee and then decide I kind of have a way of, I work best, actually first thing in the morning, like to actually work. So I'll sit down and work or write or do something. And then after that, I practice. But right before practice, I bring my guitar with me and I sing a few songs in the bathtub and then I go practice. And then after I practice.
So while you bath?
No. Oh, no, but I wish I could say yes. I'm in a dry tub.
Okay.
While I'm dry tubbing. It's a thing. It's a thing.
It's a new thing.
Yeah.
You invented it just right now.
Yeah. Oh, you can come over and have a dry tub next time you're in Bali. It's amazing. It's just like being in the bath, but there's no water.
So, but the acoustic, like the sound is better in the bathroom, right?
The sound is better, and it's a bit of my comfort zone, actually. I have like, for some reason, when I'm in the bathroom, I feel safe. That probably says a lot about a lot of things we could tap into, but yeah. So at home, there's not a lot of negotiation unless it's a week where I am having like hormonal symptoms and things. But when I'm traveling, it's definitely a different kind of negotiation. So how would I feel into it? It's just an urge, like in my body, of like, how do we describe an urge, you know? Because I think that it's important to decipher two kinds of urges. One is perhaps an urge that's coming from an aspect that can be more on the destructive side. So we've been eating Oreo cookies every night. So then every night at a certain time, we have an urge for an Oreo cookie, you know? So that's one kind of urge. And then there's another kind of urge that is not that urge. It's an expressive urge. That urge can be like when you go into the grocery store and you just relax your body and you're like, here, body, show me what you want me to put in you. So then it can be like walking around and looking, using your senses to take in the different fruits and vegetables and seeing what your body's urge wants and discerning the feeling difference between when your body wants something that actually doesn't feel that good versus when your body wants something that actually does really feel good, really nourishes. And I think that the discernment of certain things is about coming to understand our internal urges. And it's like a walking a tightrope because on one side there's, you know, I don't know why I thought of like crocodiles. I don't know where I'm going with that one, but because what could happen is you could wake up and be like, oh, my body's urging to watch Netflix. But maybe actually that's not the thing that you deep down you're really urging. So there's a bit of a hump to get over to discover a different urge inside, or sometimes it is a matter of discipline. But at what point does discipline also become kind of like mechanical or controlling? So how do we stay fluid? And I think again it comes back to this moment to moment calibrating on life, and life is moving. So I don't think, honestly, where I'm at right now is I don't think there's such a thing as balance. I mean, wait, let me take that back. I think there's such a thing as balance, but when a human mind could perceive balance as a stagnant point, like it could perceive that, it's like a teeter-totter, and it's balanced in the center with both sides of it at the same height. And if we perceive balance like that, then we're going to always be looking for something stable every day. We'll be looking for, this worked yesterday, so it should work today. And then that can put us into a state of mind or action that, again, becomes mechanical, or we develop expectations, or an internal mechanism of control can activate. Whereas if we have a perception that every day is a little different, maybe not so drastically different, some days are, but it's a little different. So can I give myself the space to actually discover the practice today, or the food today, or whatever it might be? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. To accept that every day is different.
Yeah, that every day is different, and balance is not a stagnant thing. Mm-hmm. Balance is a beautifully unstable thing, I think. Mm-hmm. Like it's different for each of us, because we all are living different experiences. So we can choose, actually. So for some, they may want to choose balance to be something that is more mechanical. And at a certain time in one's life, we might need that. I remember I really needed that. I needed to be controlling of things at a certain time. I needed a disciplined practice. I needed to be disciplined. And I really did. Mm-hmm. And it helped me to build an inner stability. Mm-hmm. So
thank you so much, Meghan. We are unfortunately already at the end of our interview. I could ask you a million more questions, but maybe part 2 is coming at some stage about discipline and about singing in the bathtub and all of these. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I have a last question. So it's a line from a book, and I really like it. It's, "Tell me, my friend, what do you intend to do with this one precious and wild life?"
That's so sweet. Be here. I want to be here. Yeah, I want to be here and be a human being. And I think that can be, for me, like the highest prayer. Like if I think about getting down onto my knees and praying versus expressing myself as I am, to me, it's the same thing. Like, so being here and the process of that, and to be, I don't mean to be like, like in meditation or something, or to be in a perfect state, idealized, or to be enlightened, or any of these things. I think that, again, those can become ideals, and ideals can become quite dangerous. Just to be here and to trust the path, like to trust all the steps, and to learn as much as I can, and to share and give and exchange with others and connect, and all of the things that being a human being represents to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was so beautiful to just be with you this 1 hour. to listen. So how can people spend more time with you? Like, I know you give teacher trainings, right? So when are your next trainings happening?
I have a 200-hour coming up in November in Bali. I will be launching my 300-hour very soon. with the first module of it in September 2019, this year. September 1st to 11th in Ubud at Radiantly Alive.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then I'll have the rest of the modules in 2020.
And do people have to get your 200 out before they do the 300? Or
no, they can add it on to whatever they have.
So maybe I will come.
Ooh, yes.
So let's see if I can manage.
It's going to be all about sequencing and sadhana. So just lots and lots of deep inner practice, which I'm excited about.
Thank you so much, Meghan.
Yeah, thank you. It was lovely.
Thank you so much. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. And you can find all the notes and all the information about Meghan in the show notes. And see you next week. Bye-bye. Vielen Dank fürs Einschalten und Zuhören. Wenn dir diese Folge gefallen hat, freue ich mich, wenn du auch nächste Woche wieder mit dabei bist. Finde alle Infos zum Podcast unter www.wandabadwal.com, Spotify, Apple Podcast oder deiner Lieblings-Podcast-Plattform. Ich freue mich, wenn du mir folgst, den Podcast mit deinen Freunden teilst und eine positive Bewertung dalässt. Denn nur mit deiner Unterstützung kann der Podcast wachsen und so viele Menschen wie möglich inspirieren. Danke, dass du dabei warst. Ich wünsche dir eine wundervolle Zeit und wir hören uns nächste Woche. Namaste.